G'day guys, it's Tim here. Lovely backdrop I've got going on today. We're at the Intercontinental Hotel in Bali. I've been having a bit of a downtime and a digital detox over the last few days. So it was only just earlier today that I decided to get on my laptop, check out a bit of news, and I saw a few of these news articles. I think it was Tim Gurner, property mogul worth $500 million, was on 60 Minutes on Sunday. And to be honest, I was absolutely disgusted from the articles that I read, basically bashing first homeowners and their expectations and how they want to live a life of BMWs and travelling to Europe and drinking their $4 coffees and smashed avocado every day. And to be perfectly honest, I'm just pretty freaking fired up about the whole situation. So I thought I'd get on Facebook and give you guys my thoughts. I mean, firstly, let's talk about Tim Gurner for a second, right? 35 years of age, $500 billion. The guy got started 16 years ago when he was gifted $34,000 by his grandfather. I mean, wouldn't that just be lovely for first home buyers now to be gifted money by family so that they could actually get onto the property ladder? Now, we've also got to keep this in perspective. That was 16 years ago when the median house price in Australia was almost half of what it currently is today. So $34,000 would have easily taken care of any person's deposit to be able to get their foot on the property ladder. Now, the other thing that I wanted to really get stuck into him about as well is, I mean, $19 smashed avocado, that wasn't the case back 16 years ago when he was a first homeowner. And the other thing that he said is that first home buyers have this expectation they can travel to Europe every year and drive around in BMWs. Now, I know lots of first home buyers or potential first home buyers, and I don't know any of them that are, not living in reality and expect that they're going to have that kind of travel lifestyle and be able to get onto the property market. In fact, many of them have, I mean, these kids are smart, mate. They're smarter than we were at that age. For a lot of them, they're actively making decisions that that's the way that they want to spend their life in those particular years, traveling and seeing the world and gathering some life experience. And man, more power to them. The thing that I also know about them as well is those of them that are making those kind of choices, they're also willing to live with the consequences as well. So good on them, and if that's what they want to do, then great. The other thing is I very rarely actually hear first home buyers as the ones that are complaining about housing affordability. Primarily where I see most of it is actually politicians and people in the media and people with particular, whether they be extreme left or extreme right kind of views. So rather than bashing millennials, I thought we should actually just get down to some really straight up facts about housing affordability. So look, I'm pretty sure everyone watching this with this Facebook Live is familiar with pretty basic and fundamental economics, meaning that it's supply versus demand. If the demand is greater than the supply, prices move up. If supply is greater than demand, prices move down. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about certain economic policy which we should be putting in place, particularly around negative gearing. And there's been a whole raft of discussions that have been made about this, right? So, the first thing I want to address about this is that the chief of Deloitte Access Economics, one of the best things I have heard this week was a statement that he made, and he said that good economics rarely makes good politics. And this is one of the things that we have to be very, very aware of when we're listening to opinions out there in the marketplace, whether it be from politicians and whether it be from the media. Actual, proper, smart economics doesn't make a good catchphrase, okay? It is not something that you can throw out there as some flamboyant, extravagant statement that is going to get you a lot of media attention and, most importantly, get you a lot of votes. So rather than just throwing out these blasé, bold statements, these Hail Marys that might actually just secure people's votes that aren't willing to actually really do any thinking about it. So, I mean, first of all, let's talk about this negative gearing, right? So they're talking about introducing economic policy that is going to increase housing affordability. The basic tenet of that is this. They want to increase economic policy that is going to reduce the price of houses. 66% of households in Australia own their home. Do you think any economic policy that reduces the value of the largest asset and probably the only appreciating asset that 66% of households own is going to be good economics? Absolutely and utterly not. Of course, they want to bash people like investors. They even want to bash foreign investors, despite the fact that foreign investors account for a very, very minute percentage of actual housing sales in Australia. look, one of the great policies that they have come out, the ghosting tax, I think it was, about taxing foreign investors that leave their properties vacant. I think that's a great idea. It's going to put more available housing on the market. It's going to increase competition and obviously reduce rents. Okay, so I think that's a fantastic policy. The other thing about investors, right? One of the things that we've got to consider from that point of view as well is that 66% of investors are under $80,000. You really want to go after people that are earning under $80,000 that are investing in their future so that the government isn't going to have to fund their retirement. I don't think that's very good economic policy either. And once again, the other thing that investors are driving up prices, look, the reality is that we have the fastest growing population in the Western developed world, okay? ABS predicted we're going to have 40 million people in 40 years' time. The demand is coming whether you like it or not. And if the investors aren't going to provide the housing, then the government's going to have to provide the housing. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't count on the government to be able to do that, right? So that 40 million people are coming. It's either going to get provided in housing sales or it's sort of going to get provided in affordable rental accommodation. The investors are actually doing a great job by keeping affordable rental accommodation. Okay, here's what we actually have to deal with. We have to deal with this at a societal level. Okay, now, one of the other things the Property Council came out and talked about the other week was that of a house and land package, 40% of the costs involved in a house and land package are actually government fees and taxes. Okay, so the government could actually look at reducing those taxes, okay, and start to make housing affordable. If you can make housing more affordable on that end and increase the competition, increase affordability across the market. The reality is this, though, is if the government isn't going to be getting their taxes from that place, they're going to have to get it somewhere else. Okay, so you're just going to rob Peter to pay Paul. So I don't think that's really something that we need to be attacking either. What we need to be looking at is this. In Australia, okay, and I will need to check my facts on this. My facts are a little bit old, so I might need to get them updated. But we live in the largest houses in the world. Okay, in terms of square meterage of homes, we also live on the largest blocks in the world. And if you look at Perth, rather than just Australia as a whole, we also have some of the most sparsely populated cities in the world. What that means is we have the least amount of people spread out over the most amount of area. Now, one of the costs of having a lifestyle or urban development planning like this is it costs a lot for the government to be able to provide infrastructure to a city that is so spread out. Now, of course, a lot of people are thinking, well, why don't we just go and build houses further and further out? Once again, that's not going to work either because the costs that the government are going to have to endure, and of course that's going to then get passed on to developers, as it already does, that's going to continue to push up the price of housing. Here's what we need to deal with as a society, okay? We need to deal with providing affordable housing by reducing the size, by reducing the, you could call it the components that make up a house, and by certainly increasing the density of living that we have in our country. I mean, you see in many other countries around they have nano, micro apartments. This is the way that we can actually maintain the value of people who already own a home, okay? Because if you're comparing a 4x2 on a 500 square metre block or something along those lines, and we start producing micro, nano apartments, you know, small apartments for people to live in, we're going to be at a much cheaper price point. It is not going to affect the asset value of that people's homes. Now, on top of this, stamp duty, we've got to get rid of it so that we can actually free up the fluidity in the market. Allow people that may be, you know, 60, 70, 80 years of age, two people living in a massive house to move out of that house and free that up for a family that's more suitable. That's going to increase the fluidity of housing stock, and it's also going to have a very positive impact on the market as well. Okay. Now, one of the big issues that we have when it comes to things like this, I mean, you know, I currently live in South Perth in Western Australia. You know, recently we had a couple of developers seeking development approval to build 30-storey apartment towers, but guess what happened? All the residents in the area got up in arms, you know, got onto the council, got the council to fight it, and effectively those things were overturned. And this is something that's very commonly happening around Australia. You get the state planning commissions implementing rules which allow us to increase density, and then what happens is local shires being forced by their residents to override it. Okay, I mean, I have a couple of development blocks about 10 k's out from the city. West Australian Planning Commission came in, brought in certain development guidelines which allowed me to put 12 two-bedroom apartments on it. That could provide very affordable housing for people in that area, but then the City of Stirling made all the changes that they need to make to overwrite the West Australian Planning Commission, and now that can't be done, and the maximum that you can put on there is 6. Okay, so Now, that doesn't rest solely with the councils. It rests with each and every one of us as Australians, okay? If we are really committed to increasing housing affordability in Australia, we as a society, not as millennials, not as first home buyers, we as a society have to get real about the economic conditions and the way that things are moving and start to reduce expectations in terms of what we can have as houses. Now, I know that if there's first home buyers out there that could get into their own first home, whether it be a mini or micro apartment, they could do that for $100,000 and $150,000. I know the overwhelming majority would absolutely jump at that chance. So, you know, man, I'm sick of this millennial bashing, absolutely sick of it, okay? We need to start taking responsibility as a society if we're actually serious about fixing these issues, and rather than listening to the bullshit that we hear from politicians and media outlets all the time, we need to do something as a society to fix these issues. Guys, that's all it's from me. I hope you enjoyed the Facebook Live today. Probably not going to do one until next week because I'm going to get back out there on my digital detox and rest and refresh so that I can get back next week. We've got some great events in Perth and Melbourne, both Tuesday and Wednesday. Look forward to seeing you there if you haven't come and seen me. It'd be great to meet you. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.